we're going to have a battle of the memes real quickly. This was my meme. Chicago Park District removes life rings from beaches and relocates them to Amazon lockers. And this is E. Heller's meme. Well, is it going over? Oh, here we go. Danger, no swimming or diving. Our lawyer told us that it's too dangerous to provide a life ring. So this is to update everybody on a story that we also covered, the life ring situation along the beach here in Chicago. Ed brought this to my attention. It's a great tweet from Ed Russo. Ed Heller brought me the attention of Ed Russo here on Twitter. Now, remember, when we were reporting on this last week, there were a series of drownings throughout Rogers Park, and tragic. And there are no life rings on the piers, no life rings at the beaches. So residents were putting up the life rings, in case of emergency. And the Park District logically took them down, removed them. Liability, insurance purposes, logically. They have no problem putting the Amazon lockers all over the city, but goddamn, put a life ring on the beach to save somebody's life. Nope, gotta go. So the Park District said that when we do put up certain measures, you're increasing your risk of liability by representing that those areas have been determined to be swimmable or usable areas, said the Park District's Timothy M. King. From a legal standpoint, the best thing to do right now is nothing, because that's the only way to not take on that increased risk of liability. From a legal standpoint, the best thing to do right now is nothing. That's like saying we shouldn't have seatbelts or airbags because that'll encourage reckless driving,
right? Yeah, it's like
don't put a safeguard in place.
Because like banning condoms because they're going to encourage people to have sex.
Yeah.
First,
we shouldn't have traffic lights up. Let's take down the traffic lights, because even though they're supposed to control people to do things, to drive safely, some people might not pay attention, and we want to be at risk of liability. So let's take the traffic lights down.
This is one of those just stories that is just utterly bizarre, but again, kind of just it's a very mundane example of how bureaucrats operate. One thing I want to point out is that bridges over the Chicago River do have life rings. And
I've seen them. Yeah, downtown. Yeah. I have seen those. Yeah,
they're also
for people jumping off bridges. For the people who are not just logically swimming at a beach, but for people who are jumping off the bridge.
Yeah, and people who are jumping off the bridges, and why anybody would want to go on the Chicago River is beyond me. But the thing is, so the city does have those rings. My guess is that those are from a different division or a different agency in the city. The other thing that's getting me about this is that Illinois does have a Good Samaritan law, and the spirit of that law is, look, you cannot be sued for taking, good faith steps to try and help somebody. And the thing is here, I mean, I don't know that a city government would necessarily come under a Good Samaritan law, but I think there's a principle here that could be, if there had to be some legislation, it could happen that would basically say, look, a simple preventative. We don't know why a person might be in the water.
Right.
A person may be attempting suicide. We don't know what has happened here. And the fact that people do incredibly stupid things, like go into large bodies of water that are not safe to swim in. Yeah, people have been doing that sort of thing for a long time. But I don't think that the life ring there is encouraging a person to do that. The person went in. The person went into the water. They've already made that decision. They've already made that choice. And I really don't think that a life ring is going to entice them to get into the water. If anything, it might remind them that water can be extremely dangerous.
Yeah.
But in one of these cases in Roger Park, I think it was a 19-year-old who drowned, and there were onlookers, and they said they could have, if they'd had a life ring, they might have been able to save this kid's life, but they didn't have a life ring. And the fact that the neighbor said, okay, we're going to take this on ourselves. The city comes in and removes those, claiming liability when it was private citizens that were doing that's just nuts. This is an example, to my way of thinking. This is an absolute example of bureaucracy at work and how bureaucracy can become sociopathic.
It's the story of our bureaucracy throughout Chicago.
Yeah.
I would argue. I mean, again, the Park District also, the fact that they've been quashing or they were interfering with the investigation with the sexual abuse allegations
Ugh.
between the lifeguards. It's like, they're left and right. They're just covering
Something's
their own
rotten.
asses,
Something's
not
rotten in
doing.
Chicago.
Yeah,
Something's
not doing what's
rotten.
right or ethical, just trying to take care of covering up there. Ed Heller had shared this with me in our Slack conversation earlier today. If Chicago parks controlled other infrastructure, they'd remove all the roads because someone might get in an accident on one of them. Traffic lights need to be removed to avoid liability from someone running a red light. You go, E. Heller. You're always right with your comments. Well, although they were for a long time. They weren't taking action. They were resistant to putting the life rings out. It did come to us today that I don't know why that story is not. Whoa, hold on. Let me see if I can get the reloaded here. There we go. So the Park District was forced into doing the right thing. They will install the life rings, close off higher risk lakefront areas after public outcry over drownings. And this comes from Joe Ward at Blog Club Chicago. The Park District, after being embarrassed into this, I would say, is rolling out safety measures along the lakefront after clashing with neighbors over the installation of life rings at a dangerous Rogers Park Pier. At a Park District board meeting Wednesday, officials finally announced several precautions for lakefront safety. The move follows public backlash over the district's decision to remove life rings installed by neighbors at Toby Prinz Beach Walk, where 19-year-old Miguel Cisneros drowned last month. The district will install life rings at beaches and will restrict access to higher risk areas along the lakefront, said Tim King, the district's general counsel. Officials haven't specified what those areas would be, but access may be restricted at piers like the ones at Toby Prinz, which has been the site of at least 3 drowning deaths in recent years. You know what? Just put a goddamn life ring there too. Put up the gate if you want, Park District. Put up the fence, do whatever you want, but put a damn life ring there anyway. It's not that hard.
It's not.
And I
that
really
hard.
commend these citizens who've been bringing attention to this by putting the life rings out there, because the only way it was going to get attention, the Park District wasn't doing anything, was by exposing that the Park District is removing these safety measures that the residents are putting out there because they can't rely on the damn Park District to do their jobs and regarding safety along the lakefront here.
Yeah. And again, a person might fall in. I mean, it's people have been known to trip and fall. A person
they're just digging their heels in, Lainie. It's like they're doubling down.
Yeah,
they're digging their heels in.
It's there for an emergency. Okay, the fact that there's a smoke detector in my apartment does not mean that that my landlord does not encourage me to set a fire.
Yeah.
The fact that accidents happen, people make mistakes. There are things that just happen. Somebody might get drunk or high or do something like that. And you put in a reasonable level of protection, which includes a life ring, which will allow people to assist somebody who's drowning, because people can drown very quickly, certainly more quickly than it can take for the fire department to show up.
Absolutely.
Rescue that person.
You put it well, bureaucratic sociopathy.
Yeah.
Well, for residents along the lakefront, the safety measures will be in place by beach season 2022, though some are being implemented now, King said. They're being undertaken as a result of an increase in park patrons attempting to swim in not safe to swim. Blame the park patrons. Don't consider the fact that people might fall in, like you just brought up, and it's just a simple matter of erring on the side of caution. Jesus Christ.
I have no problem with plucking these jamokes who intentionally go into the water, plucking them out, giving them a citation, giving them a ticket, finding the heck out of them for taking up public resources and potentially creating a very dangerous situation from themselves. Other people might be in danger. People oftentimes end up drowning themselves when they're trying to rescue a drowning person. Yeah. I have no problem with coming down on people who flout the rules, but don't take away a piece of equipment that could save somebody's life. Priorities.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's their sign, and here's E. Heller's edit, which I think is much more appropriate. Anyway, all right. So we've had enough fun with the memes regarding the park rings, but just thank goodness that they were shamed into action is what I think ended up happening.
That shouldn't happen. I mean, it's a shame that you have to shame
It's a
people who are
shame that you have
supposed
to
to
lose
be,
lives
yeah,
instead of like preventative measures in place to save them, to suddenly realize, oh, maybe we should be doing something about this. Come on, David, get
particularly
down.
when the Chicago River has the life rings.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that completely contradicts their argument.
Yeah.
But, oh boy, do you have something you want to say? You know why they do this? I've been told the reason they do this is not to annoy us. It's because he's very interested in what I'm interested in. That's what all this. It's the whole curiosity in the cat thing.
Well, I think it's also, why are we paying attention to microphones and cameras when there's a perfectly good cat
Exactly.
nearby?
I think you're absolutely right with that too.